Alright, I realize I'm a little bit late to the party, but what I want to do is I want to have a look at Zephyr because she received a huge rework that made her pretty damn strong. So here we are in the simulacrum with Zephyr Prime, and what we're going to do is we're going to summon some level 165 corrupted heavy gunners, stick them all into a good old-fashioned tornado, and we're going to kill them. Now, as part of Zephyr's rework, she can now hover by using her first ability, which does make things a lot more interesting because you actually get some extra crit rate when you are in the air as Zephyr. So if we were to, for example, summon these corrupted heavy gunners again, we would effectively be doing even more damage. And the hovering that comes from Zephyr's first ability is effectively an energy over time drain, so as long as you have energy, you will always be floating around, so that is of course really good. So this is the build that I am using with Zephyr. So it's basically a one Forma build that I am calling the B52 bomber build, because with Zephyr you can basically stay in the air as long as you want, and if you're using something like a lens or hell even a Kuva Brammer, you're basically bombing the crap out of everyone down below. So with this build, the idea is we're going to keep our strength, efficiency and duration above the 150-160 mark, because at that point I think we can have some really optimal gameplay with these stats. It would be preferable to bring the range up to the 160 mark as well, but as per usual, some things have to give in order for you to get that much out of your build. So we're using Transient Fortitude and Intensify for the extra power strength, we're using Overextended and Stretch for the extra power range, we're using Narrow-Minded and Prime Continuity for the extra duration, and we're using Fleeting Expertise for all of the ability efficiency, so that's going to be really good. Now we've also decided to swap out Airburst for Spectral Rage, and this is because I'm not a huge fan of Airburst. I'd rather use something outside of Airburst, but Airburst itself is actually not a particularly bad skill either. But I have decided to choose Spectral Siphon and Spectral Rage just so that Zephyr can easily produce a lot of energy, as we saw in that demonstration. So that's pretty much it. Really powerful build for a much more powerful WarFrame these days. Again, the ability to stay in the air and also get an additional 150% crit chance, which I believe works out to be essentially another point strike, is in fact a really powerful bonus that Zephyr has now should she stay in the air. So as long as you are hovering, for example, using her first ability by holding it down, then at that point you're able to do even more damage, which of course is always a good choice. So I think when it comes to Zephyr's rework, I think it's actually quite a successful rework, and it definitely brings her overall scores up if we look at her through the Zephyr overview type scores. So quick reminder, and I'm just going to basically go through each section here. Her damage score used to be 6 out of 10. I'm going to give extra 2 points simply because of the extra crit chance while you're in the air, and also this thing where tornadoes seem to be double dipping on gas damage specifically, to the point where if you're using a gas optical vandal, you can easily destroy level 165 corrupted heavy gunners, as opposed to using a heat optical vandal, as opposed to using a toxin optical vandal. I'm not 100% sure what the dealio is, but it seems like gas damage in particular seems to be doing really well with these tornadoes, so definitely want to be looking at that. At the same time though, as you can see, it was also massively buffing non-status weapons like the lens. The lens of course being a weapon that has kind of fallen off the wayside recently, but with the things like tornadoes, it actually does quite a lot of damage, so that's of course going to be very useful. So that's why we're going to get an additional 2 points on Zephyr's damage score, bringing it up to 8 out of 10. With Zephyr's survivability score, I'm also going to add 2 points because the ability to actually hover in the air does remove the main weakness that Zephyr has, which is against melee enemies. So you have a complete invulnerability more or less against ranged enemies, i.e. enemies that shoot you because you have something like turbulence, and then you have a seemingly high resistance to melee enemies because they basically can't hit you if you happen to be in the air. But keep in mind though, in some corridors, because you probably can't hover that high, those melee enemies are probably going to be able to take a good swing at you, so you're going to have to keep that in mind. The fact that Zephyr doesn't have an actual healing ability is the reason why she's still going to lose a point on this score. This of course brings Zephyr's survivability score from 7 out of 10 to 9 out of 10. Now with Zephyr's crowd control score, nothing really changed and nothing really needs to change for this one, so the score remains unchanged at 10 out of 10. With Zephyr's support score, that remains unchanged, and that's because I do not count the tornadoes getting buffed as being a support ability, in much the same way that I do not count Garuda's Seeking Talons as a support ability either. Now with the kit usability score for Garuda, we're actually going to give her an extra point to bring it from 7 out of 10 to 8 out of 10. This is mainly because of Zephyr's Airburst and tornadoes. Whilst they don't work together per se in some sort of forced synergy, they do have their own specific and very useful roles anyway, so that's why they regain the point that they had lost previously. However, Tailwind still has a point missing because the flight mechanic for Tailwind is still a little bit not so good. The hover mechanic is great, but the flight mechanic itself is not terribly useful if you happen to not be in an open area. And of course her passive is still half useful, i.e. the part where you get extra crit chance for being in the air, that's of course absolutely perfectly fine, whereas the part where she descends slower due to gravity, yeah, I don't think that's particularly useful in the end. So whilst her old overall score was a 6 out of 10, her new overall score is now a 7 out of 10. It's really that lack of support capabilities that's still dragging her down by quite a bit. That being said though, if you are playing by yourself and therefore don't care about support capabilities, then by definition she would actually be a 9 out of 10 WarFrame, which definitely makes her a lot stronger. So let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. Is Zephyr a WarFrame that you're using regularly now? Let me know in the comments. I think she could definitely be someone that people will just start maining in a much more useful way. If you want to actually do a build like mine, but you don't really like the idea of having that much power efficiency because you're getting rid of that much power duration, then of course you could try and do a good old-fashioned dispensary build. I just didn't want to do a dispensary build because typically dispensary builds almost always look the same. So that's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoy this. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Warframe content, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.